What do you get when you mix Army Special Forces, red teaming, and the audacity to clone a badge from feet away? You get one thing, you get White Knight Labs. I'm talking full scope red team engagement, sneaking into buildings, compromising AWS environments, and social engineering so slick that your own mother would hand over your birth certificate. Together, we're gonna break down what happens when the front door is unlocked or even locked, but the bad guys are already inside filling out HR paperwork. Without further ado, run the intro.
Who says tech can't be human?
What is going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to this show. My special guests for this episode are the co-founders of White Knight Labs. With me, I have Greg Hatcher and John Stigerwalt. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Ron. Thank you for having us.
Good to have you both. When we first met, I was very impressed with you both because you reminded me of myself in some ways, because I am a founder as well, and I'm a technical founder. I have to have my hands on the tech. And I know that when we met, that was one of the key characteristics that I took away from you both was not only are you leading a team of great resources and experts in their field, but you're also still in the trenches. Right before we started this episode, John, you were actually on a call responding to an emergency incident.
That's right. Yeah, well, we were SAP 0 Day was on there, so what a fun that was. So
was it?
Yeah.
No,
wasn't.
No, not at all.
So, Greg, I'll start with you, and then we could definitely pass the baton to John as well. But let's start by sharing a bit about the background of WKL, also known as White Knight Labs, and why your company is pretty much the Ocean 11 of cybersecurity.
Our origin story is John founded the LLC in 2016, but we didn't really get active until 2021 when I came into the company. So WKL, it's basically the boutique offensive cybersecurity consultancy that John and I always wanted to work for, but never found. So we just made it ourselves. So my background is a mix of Army Special Forces for 7 years, 4 combat deployments in the Middle East. I got out in 2017, went right to offensive cyber. Did a couple stints at various shops like VDA Labs. That's actually where I met John Stigerwalt. And after that, I went over to 6th Gen. I was a contractor for the NSA and then also for CISA, mostly CISA. I led a small red team that traveled all around the United States. A great team of folks, found some really bad vulnerabilities. And then we joined forces back in 2021, and we've been going hot and heavy ever since. So the paradigm that we wanted to structure WKL off of is the culture of Army Special Operations. So on a Special Forces team, there's 12 people on the team, and there's 2 people per MOS. That would be their military occupational specialty. So as opposed to the normal consultancies where everyone does a little bit of everything, like the cloud guy is the embedded person who's also the person doing physicals, WKL is structured like a team of teams. So the physical access operations team does exactly that. They work on cloning badges, building that tech out, bypassing locks. We're always looking for new innovative ways that we can break into buildings and clone badges, impersonate vendors. The red team is structured just like that. They're a red team. They do a ton of automation for infrastructure, loader bypasses. We have kernel O days sitting on the shelf. So if we run into a really good EDR like Sentinel-1, we can bypass it on an engagement. So then the application security team is probably the most mature at WKL, because that's our bread and butter is application security, web applications, mobile apps, APIs. So it's not anomalous for us to do an attack where we do like server-side request forgery through a web application, pivot to the AWS infrastructure, and do an AWS admin account takeover of their cloud environment from a web app. So yeah, we're not looking to like pop cross-site scripting for a numeral 1, like what I've seen in a lot of reports coming out of consultancies. The company, we have about 35 contractors, employees. We're spread out all over the globe. About half the engineering force is in the United States, but we've got folks in India, Poland, Austria, all over actually. Too many countries to list.
Worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah. We're worldwide.
International.
Yeah.
So, John, how are you holding up without Greg? Because it sounds like you started the company initially and then brought him on as a co-founder.
Yeah. Yep. I did. So, man, that's a hard one, man. That's a hard question. So 2016, I'm pen testing. I'm not working at VD Labs yet, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna start a company. And then I was like, oh, pen testing. I write reports. I'm a hacker, but I took a really hard look at it. I was like, you know what? I'm not ready. I got advice from some people. It's like, go work some different consulting shops, before you actually start, really, leading off and taking the initiative, like starting a company yourself. And, I was working VD Labs, I worked for F Secure and stuff like that. And then, you know, I met Greg and I was like, hey man, like I got this company, we could do this together. We can go run jobs. And it's been a learning experience. It has. But yeah, we came 50-50 and man, we just took off from there. I mean, without that guy there, we wouldn't be where we're at today, 100%. So super cool stuff. So
love that.
His hiring process is really, really unique. The way we run the teams is a really unique perspective that I never thought of running it like. We both, we're both easygoing, right? So some things that he didn't mention about One Day Labs that I really want to highlight is we have a really good research development around the team, right? Everybody's always wanting to do blog posts, creating new tools. I mean, if you followed us online, we're big on Cobalt Strike, our trainings, things around those lines. But the secret here, guys, and I won't call out company names, but we all know who they are. Back in the day, they hired so fast in their consulting shops that the value of pen testing went down so low. So when it comes to us, we assign one engineer per job, but that engineer is a senior or principal level, or that's it. There's no juniors. There's no regular pen testers. You're getting the absolute best who have been in the industry for a while when it comes to our consulting jobs. We're not bringing in interns or juniors to do your jobs. So that's what really makes us different across the competitors.
We do have interns, but they're SkillBridge interns. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the SkillBridge internship program that the Department of Defense has, Ron. But if a soldier is active duty, like military, so Air Force, Army, National Guard, the last 6 months of their time active duty, they can actually work at a private company while getting paid by the federal government still. And the private company does not have to pay them. They're just there to get experience. So we do currently have 2 SkillBridge interns, which are awesome. So so Mike Keeney just started, and then we also have Manny Vargas.
Where I wanted to start after the intro is physical security. And for anyone that is worried about John right now, don't worry, Greg did not beat him up. But you did say that the black eye came from 2 days ago. Did it come from a job or did it come from maybe some martial arts?
Yeah, mixed martial arts. So I roll jiu-jitsu a few times a week, and we went really hard Tuesday night. And I didn't even know I got hit in the eye, but I woke up, actually I came home that night, and the wife's like, hey, you got a black eye? And I was like, it's not so bad. And then the next day it was like really, really bad. So, oh yeah, right here. Oh, it's bad. So it don't hurt. It's just I took a hit. It is what it is. So yeah, I'm just
it's
a
white belt,
so nothing impressive.
It's a stripe. So since that wasn't from a job, let's go ahead and talk about the state of physical security, even though it's not giving you black eyes. How would you describe the current state of physical security? We just spoke about big organizations kind of diluting the quality of red teams. But how are red teams doing right now with physical security?
Man, the U.S. market is, I'll be honest, it's a crapshoot. It really is. So most clients who want a red team are not really truly ready for a red team. So, and that's what we've come across both times. So we positioned, and, kind of reevaluated what that really looks like. So we have these things called, insider threat assessments. We also just sell physical pen testing alone. So when a client's not truly ready for a red team, we'll sell, mini services or sprints or something along those lines. But then we do come across a very mature company that does actually do the true red team. Most of our red teams today include some kind of physical component. Myself and Greg, we lead the physical operations team. It's a very important part of the red team, right? Because most of those physical engagements, is the start of our initial access operations, right? So I have this really custom Raspberry Pi. It runs off a 4G dongle. It's just a simple SSH reverse tunnel over a route. So we'll plug it in. We bypass NAC all the time. Clone printers, whatever. But most companies who want a physical pen test aren't really ready for a physical pen test. Now, there's a few reasons why. Most companies can't do the absolute security. If you've ever built buildings, and me and Greg both own real estate, and doesn't make us experts in this area. Some people may argue our point, but most North American buildings, and that's from, I could draw a line across the map. Most North American buildings are insecure by default because of fire code or by code compliancy in some fashion, right? They have to allow people to exit the building in a very easily manner without people dying, smoke inhalation, burning down to death, right? Blah, blah.
True.
We all saw the Chicago fires and what happened there. So there's a reason code does exist. So we use that knowledge of buildings and how they're built and how people have to exit to gain entry to buildings. Now, we throw badge readers and all this electronics in there, but I'll be honest. I would say 95% of jobs me and Greg do, we never have to clone badges. Even when we do clone badges, we get in without cloning a clone badge. That's just how it is. We exploit people, the social engineering aspect. So when it comes to red teaming, there's so many parts of a red team, right? We're not just looking for vulnerabilities. We're looking for business logic failures that we're looking to exploit. It is a one-time, at that time, one point. I'll look at the time of security, how I want to word that. But building is inherently insecure, so it's not hard for someone to get into the building. It's what happens after the fact too. So.
Ray, how would you describe the current state of physical security? Is there anything that you would add to that? Is physical security even a real thing, especially when you consider the fact that we have to build a code and security is not in mind, it's more safety.
Yeah. We've done so many physical access operations over the years, and the maturity of our clients varies wildly. We did one recently where we just walked up to the door after hours and we loaded the lock in 5 seconds, and we had unfettered access to the entire building. And then we just breached the server room by loading it as well. So that would probably be the bottom of the barrel. But then recently we've also had to, lockpick our way into a building, clone a badge by bumping into the cleaning lady. And then we were able to access the server room and access some other PI from the building. So I don't want to say that the state of security for physical security is bad or good. It just depends. It's sort of like a network, right? Like some companies are really investing a lot in cybersecurity. They're running a good EDR. They have a top tier MDR if they can afford it. And they've got a great patch management program. I think physical security is the same way. Like if a company hasn't invested resources and time into actually improving their security posture, of course they're going to be terrible. Just like a network would be terrible.
I have to jump in for a second to share some details about our sponsor for this episode, White Knight Labs. In today's digital world, trust is earned, not assumed. At White Knight Labs, they help organizations across industries secure what matters most, from public-facing applications to high-security internal networks. Their team of consultants bring experience across verticals, environments, and evolving threats. They don't just find vulnerabilities, they train you to defend against them. Their hands-on cybersecurity training and certification programs build real-world readiness, whether it's a new web app that needs a security review, a deep dive penetration test, or upskilling your staff. They've got you covered. Test, train, harden. White Knight Labs, offensive security built for resilience. Thank you, White Knight Labs, for sponsoring this episode. There's a story that I want to ask you all about that we kind of spoke about on a previous session. It has to deal with my city, Austin, Texas. What is this story about Austin, Texas? What the heck were y'all doing here?
So yeah, a client contacted us. They wanted us to break into one of their buildings down in Austin, Texas. They specialize in the lottery is their industry. So one of the objectives of the red team engagement was can we break into the building? Can we gain access to lottery material? Can we move lottery material across the state line? Because that would be in direct violation of compliance. So we show up. We always do like a daytime recce. We look at patterns of life, entrances and exits to the building, where the employees going in is at a different exit than where the customers are going in. Then we went back at night. We scoped out the back door. We're like, okay, that's definitely where we're going in. And you already know this, Ron, but like Austin has a pretty bad homelessness problem, and there was about 10 homeless people about 15 feet away from us in this alley where we're breaking into this building. And we had to work on this exterior door to gain access for a good 20 minutes. So they had under the door tool protection on the exterior door in the bottom. So we've got power tools out. We're like taking the under the door tool protection off. Like at one point we have a crowbar. John's lifting the door while I'm putting the under the door tool underneath the door to actually turn the doorknob. And the homeless people, they're just watching the whole thing. Like,
we had an audience.
awkward. Yeah, we did audio.
It was awkward. I was like, we're teaching these guys how to break into a building. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
At one point, the under the door tool got stuck in the door. So we're like, are we going to abandon ship right now? We're like, what are we going to do? So we eventually got the door open. They had really great security. As soon as the door was opened, ADT went off, like the whole alarm system went off, and John and I like, okay, what do we do now? We ran inside. I planted a Raspberry Pi in the network. Very crudely, it was not concealed. It was not clandestine. All we wanted to do was like, okay, I want network access to this thing if this is our last attempt. So I ran in, plugged in the Raspberry Pi, alarm's still going off. Oof. We leave. John, did we put the under the door tool protection back on?
We did, yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, I used to work with a lot of first responders. Greg has experience as well. So there's a lot of mixed views when we're doing physical operations, and it comes to wasting first responder resources. So I just want to call out here, like the client specifically asked us to perform a full red team, like physical with first responders, like coming and, understanding everything and doing the call tree. So I know there's a lot of mixed views about that. We don't do that all the time. We hate to waste resources, but in this case here, it was necessary to really prove like this company could not lose millions of dollars. It was a really good thing because we had a lot of response and great outcome. But the alarm goes off. Greg runs in. He plants this little Raspberry Pi in the middle of the floor. Like the cleaning crew is going to walk right on top of it. I'm like, bro, look, what are we doing? So,
we didn't know the police response time either.
We didn't know the police response time. We were guessing 4 minutes. We were way, way wrong. I mean, we were so long. So we're waiting. I think it's 15 minutes go by, still nothing. Now, remember, there's no sign of brute force entry into the building. So the police have no reason to enter the building, and they have no probable cause. They just they know alarm went off, and they really legally cannot enter without having someone there from the call tree from the client. Mm-hmm. So there's a Whataburger. I think there's a Whataburger right next to the building. So we're sitting at Whataburger. We're positioned ourselves where we can see police come to the building. So we sit at Whataburger for I think it was like 25, 30 minutes, and still nothing. I was like, okay, we're just gonna go back in. Finally, we're at the door, and we see these flashlights shining on the outside. Finally, 4 or 5 minutes later, we had a response time from one officer pulling on the back of the door, just seeing if someone was there. So then the officer leaves. Perfect. This is great stuff. As we know, the police, if the alarm goes off again and there's no sign of brute force entry, it's going to be classified as a false alarm. So that would allow us to roam freely through the building, setting off motion detections, and the police will probably never come back again. That was the assumption. This is what happened in the past for us. So
what followed was like the most annoying night of me and John's life. Yes. Because we go back in, the alarm goes off the whole time we're working through this building. On top of that, the motion sensor alarms are going off too. So we've got like 10 alarms going off at once where we're trying to, gain access to unlock workstations, get into the safe, do all the kinds of normal badness that you would do on a physical access operation. So finally, we do our work. We leave. We put the under the door tool. We put the under the door protection back on, and we drive away. We did not actually get persistence that night. We had to go back the second night and gain persistence. John, you talked about like the dongle and 4G. Do you want to go into more detail on that?
Yep. So I found this Raspberry Pi build online, and there right now for Raspberry Pis for Kali Linux, there's not a ton of like 4G dongle or 3G dongle support. So I found this weird, seller online that comes from International, and it supports T-Mobile, but only certain ones of them you buy would support T-Mobile. So I bought like 5 or 6 of them like for $25, and only 3 of the 5 worked with T-Mobile. So, but it's only 8 meg up and 8 meg down. I'm like, I could work with that. That's no problem. So as long as it has service, it will give us an 8 meg tunnel all day long, up and down. Well, that's all I need. I'm not going to run gigs of data across there. So I just set this fancy little route that just pops up this 4G dongle. And we Velcro it under the bottom, and then we would just have these battery backups, and then powered by the wall. So we just tape everything together. I have I used the Canon Raspberry Pi boxes for this one, and they're just real black, and just tape them and then just hide it under the desk with Velcro. So when you rip it off the wall, it doesn't like actually hurt the drywall or anything on the desk, right? We want to be very careful on that. So we planted 3 inside the network. We planted 1 on the lottery network, which is I'm blown away that worked, and we planted 2 on just the office network. So we ran with 3 Raspberry Pi boxes, simulating printers or just various, Macs and host names on the network. Because we had unfettered access to the building for 2 days, basically. So, we just planted and we got in there. So One of the cool things on our second night, though, that I want to call out is
What was it? Was it cool, John?
This is where I saw Greg's side here. We set the alarm off again. Blah blah blah. We didn't think the police were going to come, and a lot of police came. They must have had a free night. Yes, so we didn't have one officer. We had 4 squad cars around the building, and they were all shining lights to the windows and pulling on the doors. So, and this is also when the client verified with the police that we were there.
And y'all are inside at this point.
We were all inside the building hiding.
We were trapped inside the building.
Yeah, so we had to call the client again because, we weren't going to waste first responder resources again. But for somehow the client didn't answer the call tree and then didn't notify the police on this one. So we only usually do it the first night. After the second night, it's like, hey, just call the police off. Don't come. Well, the police still came, so we're not sure what happened there. So, but me and Greg hid in the corner of the building, and we had an army of police surrounding the building.
Yeah.
And
so this is Texas, so we are getting shot no matter what.
So long story short, the client calls the police and tells them that we're doing a simulated attack. I don't know if they knew we were in the building or not, but we're not coming out until they leave. So they all left, or 2 of them sat in the parking lot. We snuck out the back door, and we didn't have any confrontation that night for the police.
Wow.
So it was a very successful engagement, especially around the call tree, the alarm systems. A lot of clients, we've realized, pay for all these alarm systems, but the call, no one's getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to answer the phone.
Yep.
So, or it's spam, right? So how it goes. Crazy stuff.
High blood pressure on that one.
That was a good one because we were still successful with pressure on. There was one in 2024 where we were not as successful. So
that's good and interesting to hear that, the tactics that you all took and how successful or lack thereof they were, because it sounds like, there was a little bit of a struggle getting in, which I would imagine would be the case if someone is trying to get into a physical building. Hopefully there's a little bit of a struggle. But it makes me wonder, there's the physical threat and then there's the cyber threat. I know that you all focus on both. If you were to secure one first, would you secure the physical security, like physical perimeter, or the digital perimeter?
I would secure their external attack surface because anyone on the planet can reach that. Physical security always needs to be second, but it also depends what you're protecting, right? Like if you're attacking like a hospital, physical access probably needs to be number one because they can have direct access to patients. But if it's like, say, a bank where even if they break into the building, they still have to get into the safe and take the money, that's probably not as big as a priority as the external attack surface or the network.
That's very good. My also biggest thing is what's the vector we're targeting, right? Is it just like a CPA or local accountant who doesn't have any files on site and everything's stored in the cloud, and all they have is their personal laptops being used in the business? Well, that's not going to get me anything if I break into the building, right? If they're all in the cloud, all the data stored in the cloud, I'm just going to break into an empty building with no one there. So it doesn't make sense, right? So I would say digital at that point. It all depends on what the goal is, though, right? So hospital's a great one, manufacturing's a great one. We don't want to be stealing. They don't want us stealing certain things. Or I think NASA had a good example. Did someone plug Raspberry Pis into NASA at some point, right? Someone just walked in, plugged a Raspberry Pi in there. That's unbelievable for a company like NASA. That's crazy, man. That's nuts.
And also, I think as more and more companies are going fully remote, like WKL is fully remote, we don't have a physical building at all.
Nope.
There isn't a physical attack surface.
Yeah, so you got to definitely probably focus on what most people are going to have access to. I would do the same, especially because we don't actually have a physical building for Hacker Valley. So I got to do the digital thing. But someone probably could still break into my house and steal a lot, but it's not going to be as impactful breaking into AWS or HubSpot, things like that. What is impactful, though, that I don't think we'd speak much about, and I know that you all have a great deal of experience in this arena, is insider threat. All the way from getting hired at a company to then, using that employee access to pivot around and see things and steal things. What has been your experience, and tell us a little bit about those engagements?
So we've had a few unique clients, and it's getting more popular after the North Korean got hired. We all heard the story. North Korean got hired, they didn't validate, or he just used some kind of AI to generate a license. He got hired and stole data. So we've been doing that before the North Korean and before this got more popular, which is hilarious. So we have certain financial institutions, manufacturing that says, hey, we want to see if you can get hired, like before I've studied for a scientist or an underwriter, or I've studied for some kind of weird job, right? I'll use chat to generate, interview questions. I will study and study and study, and I'll try to answer any questions I possibly can, to get hired. It can be very junior level. Once I'm hired, I will get a payroll, I'll get a salary, and like they'll hire me as an employee. I'll get a laptop shipped to the house, and I'll have to pretend to be an underwriter and actually start doing work with teams and stuff. So while we're doing that, our team comes in behind me while I'm working or someone's working on a daily basis. We're also enumerating the network, looking at file shares. What data do we have access to? Cool, we beat the validation process. I mean, did we really though? I mean, yeah, I gave my government ID, like my stuff. I can't, just so you guys know, we're not legally allowed to forge government IDs. That's like a felony. So like we have to be hired on as your true person, So unless it's like a contract position where they're not asking for validation, that doesn't happen anymore. But like they actually hired John Stigerwalt, so which is good. So then the team comes in behind me and is like, we're starting to hack the network. This will be 3-week engagement, 15 days, 20 days, blah, blah, blah. And we'll eventually get to the point where like, hey, we almost got caught, or like, we didn't get caught, but now we want to do something loud, or like we call it a white cell or a POC, point of contact. They'll say, hey, go be loud, go ransomware a file share, do something. So of course we're running through a C2 or Cobalt Strike beacon, whatever, and then we run a ransomware simulation through that to finish it out and look like a real ATP or something. Sometimes we just don't even want us to do anything, to say, okay, leave, quit, and we'll write a report and we'll deal with it internally. So every client's different, right? Sometimes they want a loud bang at the end, like a shotgun, and sometimes they just want like a sniper bullet, just leave and go, get it out.
First day on the job, already running Cobalt Strike.
Yeah, first day.
And what's interesting is the insider threat assessment, it came out of demand as opposed to us wanting to create it. So we had a client frantically calling us because this was a fintech company on the East Coast. All their software development was done in India, and basically the CEO of the Indian software development company, the relationship with the CEO of the fintech company in New York, it soured, and essentially the CEO was going to hold their code ransom and like lock them out of all their code, so like in GitHub. So in the middle of the night, we basically moved all of their code into another GitHub account, locked out all the Indian development team, and that's how we kind of saved them, if you will. It was almost like a military operation. So it was very strategic.
Take my data back.
Yes.
Yeah, it was wild.
And then we did a secure code review on their web application. We found tons of backdoors. There was an instance where if you knew a certain cookie value, you could create a super admin account unauthenticated, like really crazy backdoors that were intentional.
What's the feasibility of just walking into a building with like a fake badge, assuming that they don't have like a badge reader at the front desk? What's the feasibility of someone just walking in and sitting down at a desk?
We're so custom and so tailored to seeing badges on people's necks, we don't even validate what they are anymore. Like everybody has a badge. I mean, Verizon, AT&T, your ISPs, sometimes your trashmen have badges now. Like it's crazy. Everybody has a badge. So as long as you look like you're meant to be there and you have that attitude, like, hey, leave me alone, or you're on the phone, you're looking busy, no one's going to bother you. People are scared of confrontation nowadays. It's not like it used to be like 20 years ago. Like we're seeing less and less people confronting people during physicals. Like it's absurd. Like everybody's just scared to say hi. Like, and there's a lot of reasons that is nowadays, but it's getting less and less every year. And even after COVID, it's even worse now. So.
And coding badges is very low effort for us. Like if Susie in accounting got hired at Microsoft, she wants to show the world that she got hired at Microsoft. So she goes on LinkedIn, she has a picture of her badge, like, look, I work at Microsoft now. Boom. Now we have the exact logo and like the graphic for creating a Microsoft badge, 3D printer, and we're off to the races.
So thank you, Susie.
It's always Susie.
It's always Susie. I speak to a lot of CISOs, just in general. A lot of our partners, they want us to invite CISOs to join streams like this. They want us to bring CISOs on. And one of the things that we never speak about is physical security and just like this aspect of the threat. Is this an area that you all are seeing like CISOs prioritize, or is this something that is prioritized before they get to hiring a CISO?
I would say that a CISO focuses on the biggest risk to the business first, as opposed to like the cool stuff like physicals. But kind of like back to my first answer regarding like who's doing these and like what is the state of physical security, it depends on the industry. So if I'm a CISO and I've had penetration tests on the network and my cloud infrastructure for the last 10 years, but I've never had a physical done, and we're storing like really critical information on site, it might be time for a physical.
Tying on to that as well, it's like, man, like if they've never hired a CISO before, or someone's leaving, someone's going, like it comes down to the highest risk. And like, what's always the first highest risk when someone walks in there? It's like, oh, we have no email security, we have no MFA, we have no single sign-on, we have none of this stuff. So when it comes down to it, they're going to focus on the highest risk. When they probably might do a risk assessment or just try to get a heat map of something, right? Physical might be on there, but that CISO may not. Most CISOs don't know anything about physical security either. That's mostly comes down to building manager. Mm-hmm. So 2025 today, most companies do not own their own building. So they've never thought about actually building security. They're just going to let someone else handle it. But that building security manager doesn't know anything about real security when it comes to like breaking or wooding locks. They've just been what they've taught. It's like, oh, we have a vendor, but we don't know if they can do that. That's the answer we get all the time. We say, hey, get these recommendations. You have really bad doors. You shouldn't be using just regular pull door handles on the inside and outside. You're not, you're violating, fire code. So most CISOs don't know anything about physical security. So it's like they have experts on both sides. Sure, we're the experts at breaking in. I'm not the guy who comes in and replaces your door. I'm not that guy. Yeah, I can fix a door lock, sure, but I'm not going to install a brand new, fire security, high security steel door and make sure it can't be avoided. That's not my job. So there's other experts where they need to reach out to, and that's probably my best advice when it comes to physical security. Is you're not going to be an expert in everything. Reach out to someone who is.
Yeah, and I will say there's a lot of low-hanging fruit stuff that you can do for physical security, just like low-hanging fruit for improving network security. So external security cameras is a really big one. A lot of companies don't even have cameras on the exterior of their building, and even if they do, like, are they actually being watched by a human being? I can't tell you the amount of times that we've been attacking a door with a camera that's like pointed right at us and nothing happens. Mm-hmm. It's really unsettling, actually. But there's companies like, even on the residential side, there's companies like Simply Safe where you can go buy a $300 security system, put cameras all around your building, and then as soon as there's movement after a certain time of day, it just takes a picture and starts recording.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not really rocket science to secure the outside of a building.
Everyone has now installed Ring doorbells or the Arlos, and those are valuable, especially if you got an expensive package coming. At least you can keep an eye on it. You might not be able to stop them from stealing it, the porch pirates, but you can at least figure out that it was delivered and someone took it.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing I will say, though, all the companies have a SOC team monitoring the network and things like that. They have SOC teams for physical security where they'll come out and install cameras, and they'll monitor them for you after like 11 p.m. till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning until your first employee gets there. And then they're done. Like, that's like the best service. And some of them are really cost efficient. Like, their only job is, hey, we see motion, this person we've never seen before, call the police. Like, that's their only job. Like, that's a really good job. Like, I would hire them all day.
So looking at 2025, someone calls you for a red team engagement. They don't know where to start. What's going to be your recommendation, or even what's going to be your process for figuring out how to make that recommendation?
I got a good one. Have they ever had a pen test before? That's the first question. Have you ever had a red team before? So if they haven't had, if they're not vulnerability scanning, if they've never had a red team or pen test before, they don't have MFA turned on, they're not ready for a red team. I'm not going to sell them a red team. It's a big waste of money. We'll first sell them like maybe a 365 review with a pen test, external, internal, kind of get like an over like, a real quick view of like what the network is, maybe have them work through some of the most common findings. Do they have EDR in place? Are they monitoring it? Do they have a SIM? So just a basic scoping call is like honestly the first step, right? Just asking the most simple questions. So let's say a CISO or a client has gone all through those. Hey, we've had 5 red team tests before. We've been pen testing for the last 15 years. We're following all CS benchmarks. We have all the NIST 853 version 4 in place, blah, blah, blah. We're PCI compliant. We have CDEs. Then yeah, I think they're probably ready for a red team. So that right there is just some simple questions about the maturity of the network and clients. That tells me everything about it, right? Now sometimes we do run into where clients are like, hey, we're ready for a red team. We've done all these things and it's still a crapshoot, but that's okay. So, not everybody's perfect. There's a lot of things that go undone, especially the bigger companies. The smaller the company, the more secure they are. Usually that's the case if they have a good security budget. A company the size of Microsoft or the company the size of like Dell or Intel, they have so many things going on. It is almost impossible to track and secure every little possible instance. It's just never going to happen. So, and that's where we see a lot of success with red teams. They may have great detections, but they onboarded 500 employees and they forgot to add a group policy. So now a whole network or subLAN or VLAN is unsecured and not being monitored at all. And they never saw a thing we did.
So during this initial scoping call, we're gauging the maturity of the client. So I think of security maturity as a hierarchy. So is the client doing like asset inventory of all software and hardware? Okay, that would be step one. Are they doing vuln scanning? Okay, are they like running Nessus weekly or monthly? Okay, they're doing that. Now have they been penetration tested? Are they still getting like high and critical results and recommendations on their penetration tests? If they're not, then they're probably ready for a red team. And then if they are ready for a red team, it's how can we cripple the business to the knees? Remember, so the red team is a holistic attack on the business itself as opposed to a network-focused attack, which is what a penetration test. So we're attacking people, processes, procedures, and the network, sometimes physical buildings as well. So all the way from attacking the building, breaking in, impersonating vendors, HR, things like that. We're doing, like deep fake, voice cloning, things like that. We're planting malicious devices inside the building, but then we're also, getting domain admin is typically an objective, but it's like third or fourth in the list. Usually our objectives are like, okay, can you access the source code for our web application? Can you backdoor it? Can you push malicious dependencies? Can you access PHI? Can you reach the OT network and plant some kind of device on that network? It's very customized as opposed to a penetration test, which is a smash and grab.
With all that being said, how do people typically find WKL, or how do you find them?
Yeah, so
that's a good question.
Yeah, we do have automation on our website, so people can just reach out to us if they need a penetration test or web app pen test. And then we also do a lot of teaching at conferences all over the planet. Shirag and Ronak are teaching the Azure course at VulnCon later this year. We've got 4 courses that are being taught in NorthSec in Montreal in 2 days, May 10th actually. So we're also teaching 3 courses at DEF CON. If anyone is listening to this and you're going to DEF CON, check out the Red Team Village. We'll be sponsoring. We'll also be throwing an after party.
Hey.
Yeah, you can reach out over LinkedIn to the company website. You also can just email sales@onealabs.com for like a really fast way to get to me and Greg directly and our sales team. Hit us up. We respond extremely fast. So that's one of our cutting edges is that, we're not going to, make you guys wait 30 days. We'll get back to you same day or next business day. That's pretty much our philosophy here.
I love it. I'm impressed with what y'all have built and what you're continuing to build. So much so that, like I mentioned in the start of this, you were responding to an incident right before you joined in, and you were able to balance the two, take care of the customer in a timely manner, but still show up for a live stream. I know that's a lot of pressure, so I wanted to say I appreciate you for that one.
Clients always come first. This is just fun play right here. But we really do care about clients. I think that's the most important thing about us, right? We do care. We have a passion. Well, we wouldn't be here if we didn't. So, every client has a specific need that we want to meet and help match, and we want to make them a partner and not just, a customer. I think that's the way I look at it.
I love that. I love what y'all are doing. I know we're going to do this again because we have another episode that we're planning right now. I wanted to say thank you both for taking some time out of your busy day, jumping on the mics with us. Also speaking to our audience, be sure to check out White Knight Labs. If you haven't done so already, follow them on LinkedIn, reach out directly, go to their website. You know the drill. It's the best way to support the podcast and the Hacker Valley Media platform. John, Greg, I wanted to say thank you again. And with that, we will see everyone next time.